The rain had a way of finding the weakest places in a man's life, and that morning it soaked through everything the single father thought he still had left. It pressed his shirt to his skin, filled his worn shoes with cold water, and followed him into the glass building where hope was supposed to live. He stood there with trembling hands, holding a folder that felt heavier than any burden he had ever carried, knowing this job was the last door still open to him. If it closed, he didn't know how he would keep his child fed, warm, and safe for another month. Before the story goes any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet strength of people who keep going when life tries to crush them, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He had not always been this man. Once he had been steady, employed, invisible in the best way. He woke up early, came home late, paid his bills on time, and dreamed small dreams that felt safe. Then the illness came suddenly and stayed too long. Hospital rooms replaced dinner tables, medical bills replaced savings, and eventually grief replaced sleep. When his wife passed away, it left behind silence, a small child who asked questions he could not answer, and a world that did not slow down even for heartbreak. He learned very quickly that mourning was a luxury he could not afford. Diapers still needed buying, school shoes still wore out, and rent notices did not care about funerals. The months that followed were a blur of exhaustion. He took any work he could find, day labor, night shifts, tasks other people refused because they were too tiring or too demeaning. Pride was something he had packed away the moment he became the only parent. His child was everything now, the reason he woke up and the reason he couldn't give up even when his body begged him to. But jobs dried up, and the economy did not care about effort or good intentions. One by one, employers turned him away when they saw the gaps in his resume, the dark circles under his eyes, and the quiet desperation he tried so hard to hide. That was how he found himself standing in the lobby of a towering corporate building, waiting for an interview for a position no one wanted. The work was rumored to be brutal, the hours unforgiving, the pay just enough to keep someone afloat but not enough to feel human. People said it broke men, that it aged them quickly, that it demanded everything and gave back very little. Most applicants walked out halfway through the explanation. But for him, this job was not about dignity or comfort. It was about survival. It was about keeping the lights on and making sure his child did not go to bed hungry again. As he waited, he watched well-dressed employees pass by without seeing him. Their polished shoes clicked confidently across the marble floor, their conversations filled with plans and meetings and lunches that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. He wondered what it would feel like to belong to a world like that, a world where the future felt predictable instead of terrifying. When his name was finally called, he stood up too quickly, dizziness washing over him, and followed the assistant down a long hallway that smelled faintly of coffee and ambition. The interview itself was brief and strangely impersonal. His experience was skimmed, his availability noted, his willingness to work nights and weekends confirmed. There were no smiles, no encouragement, only nods and the sound of pen against paper. When it ended, he was told to wait. Hours passed. He sat alone, replaying every answer in his head, wondering if he had said too much or not enough. He thought about his child at school, probably pretending not to notice that their shoes were a little too small and their lunch a little too simple. He promised himself silently that he would not fail them again. Finally, he was called into a larger office, one that overlooked the city like it owned it. The CEO stood near the window, a figure of calm authority, someone who had never worried about rent or grocery prices. The man introduced himself with polite distance and explained that the position was available immediately. Relief surged through the single father so strongly it almost knocked him off his feet. He nodded again and again, ready to accept anything, ready to sign whatever papers were placed in front of him. Then the cost was revealed. It was not a financial cost in the way he expected, not a fee or a reduction in pay. It was something far more devastating. The job required complete availability, unpredictable hours, and mandatory overnight shifts that could change without warning. There would be weeks when he would not see his child awake, days when he would come home after they were asleep and leave before they woke up. Childcare would be his responsibility, and there would be no exceptions, no accommodations. The company demanded total commitment, and anyone who could not give it was replaced without hesitation. The words felt like a physical blow. His mind raced through impossible calculations. He had no family nearby, no savings for childcare, no backup plan. Every solution ended in the same place, him failing his child in a way that mattered more than money. He thought of bedtime routines, of small hands reaching for him at night, of promises he had made at a graveside that he would always be there. The job he needed more than anything was asking him to pay with the very thing that made his life worth fighting for. He sat there, struggling to breathe, knowing that if he said no, the doors would close for good, but if he said yes, he would become a ghost in his own home. The CEO watched him carefully, perhaps seeing for the first time not just an applicant, but a man on the edge of collapse. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. The single father finally lowered his head, shame burning in his chest, and admitted that he did not know how he could afford the cost. What happened next was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, almost easy to miss. The CEO asked questions, not about availability or productivity, but about his life, about his child, about how long he had been alone in this fight. As the story spilled out, the carefully built walls in the room seemed to soften. The CEO listened, really listened, and something shifted. The man who had spent years making decisions based on profit and efficiency was confronted with a reality that numbers could not measure. The CEO explained that the company had once been built by people like him, by parents and workers who balanced responsibility with sacrifice. Somewhere along the way, that humanity had been lost. Policies had hardened, and compassion had been labeled inefficient. Hearing the cost of those choices spoken aloud changed something. The CEO admitted that the job was designed without considering people who had no safety net, and that perhaps it was time to reconsider what success truly meant. In the days that followed, the single father expected a rejection email. Instead, he received a call. The position was his, but with changes. The hours would still be demanding, but schedules would be posted in advance. A child care assistance program would be piloted, starting with him. The company would cover part of the cost, not as charity, but as an investment in loyalty and well-being. It was not perfect, but it was possible. For the first time in a long while, the future did not feel like a wall. The first weeks were hard. He was exhausted in new ways, learning systems he barely understood while still juggling parenthood. There were moments he doubted himself, moments he wondered if he was strong enough to survive both worlds. But slowly, routines formed. His child adjusted, finding comfort in new caregivers and pride in their father's perseverance. Bills were paid on time. The fridge was full. Laughter returned to their small apartment, tentative at first, then stronger. Word spread through the company about the changes. Other employees came forward with their own struggles, their own hidden costs. The program expanded. Policies softened, and productivity did not fall as feared. Instead, people worked harder, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. The single father became a quiet symbol of what happened when someone was given a chance instead of a closed door. Years later, he would look back on that rainy morning as the moment everything almost ended and almost began at the same time. He never forgot the fear, the humiliation, or the weight of that cost. But he also never forgot that one person chose to listen. His child grew up watching resilience in action, learning that dignity was not about comfort, but about choosing love even when it was expensive. If this story has touched your heart so far, please pause for a moment and show your support. Like the video, share it with someone who might need encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the people who need them most. As the years passed, the single father did not become rich or famous. He became something better. He became stable. He became present. He attended school events when he could, helped with homework late at night, and made sure his child always knew they were loved beyond measure. The job that once threatened to take everything ended up giving him a foundation, and the cost that almost broke him became the reason change was possible. Just before this story ends, we have one special request. Please leave a comment sharing your thoughts, your experiences, or even just a word of encouragement. Your voice matters more than you know. In a world that often ignores quiet suffering, this story is a reminder that hope sometimes hides in the hardest places. It waits in uncomfortable conversations, in moments of vulnerability, and in the courage to admit when the cost is too high. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you feel a little less alone, please engage with this video from your heart. Your kindness helps keep stories like this alive, and you never know whose life it might change next.